So Mehek, welcome to this debriefing session, and congratulations on scoring a 710. How does it feel?
Thank you. It feels absolutely amazing. Actually, it feels a kind of relief that, I'm done with my GMAT finally.
Okay, so I'm going to actually put you in a slight tough spot. You said you took the GMAT, or you actually prepared for it once you had a very low score. You didn't tell me what that low score was. So
Because I canceled it immediately without even looking at it because it was like I was waiting for some kind of miracle to happen. I wasn't scoring during the mocks. I decided to take a plunge. I thought some miracle would happen, but nothing happened. I didn't even look at the scores, immediately canceled it and ran out of the place.
was that score lower than 550,
No,
around
no,
550, or
no.
higher
It was
than?
like 600s.
It was in 600, so it wasn't that low then. So then let's call it about what, 100-point improvement for you. Is that a
Yes,
fair?
yes.
Okay, that's. I just wanted to make sure that we put things in context over here. So when you think about, in that, let's call this score of 610, that way 17 is a perfect 100. It's a nice round 100-point improvement over there. So when you looked at that and say, okay, you have the score of 610 right now, and what were the top three challenges that you felt you had to overcome to get to the score of 710? And
I had to basically structure my thought process, first of all. I needed a structured way of studying because uh, every material that you find in the market is very unstructured. You have a lot of stuff there on the internet, and sometimes it becomes very difficult for you to, limit yourself as to what questions to focus on, what aspects to focus on. I think I needed that structured way of studying, and most importantly, I needed to repeatedly do questions in a very time framed manner. So these were the three challenges that I was facing, and that's why I decided, I'll take a course.
but you also did Manhattan Books, you did the official guide prior to joining the course. So
Yes.
how did that, when you say it wasn't structured, can you tell me a bit more about it? And
Um,
and just to really add some context, you are a CFA level 2, and I don't know if you did the CFA level 3, but you did CFA level 2, which means you know competitive exams to a reasonable degree.
yeah, I've given CFA level 2. I had to give CFA level 3 in June, but the exam got postponed. That's how I got the opportunity to study for GMAT. But yeah, coming back to the question of Manhattan Books, I mean, the books are great. There are no doubts about it. The concepts are very well explained. But when it comes to applying those concepts to a question, I think I was facing that difficulty. I needed tons of questions to practice because I am the kind of person for whom theory doesn't work. I need to apply it practically. So I needed a lot of questions, and I needed to preserve my official guide towards to the end, to the last moment for my final touchdown. So I needed set of structured questions, not just random questions or popping up on the internet. So Manhattan Books were good for building the concepts, but not great when it comes to applying those concepts to the question and giving the exam in a very time framed manner. So that was the problem that I was facing.
Got it. Okay. Um, then you bought the e-GMAT course. How did you? So you said you talked to someone on the team before you bought the course. So
Yes.
what did that tell you when you
Uh,
spoke with
I
someone?
I was really apprehensive, about whether I should commit myself to one particular course because it's like a commitment. You decide to take a course, and that means that you're going to devote yourself to that course. You will go as per the plan of the course. You will take the questions as per the course. So I had to do my research. So after watching a couple of videos, doing my research on the internet, talking to one of your folks, I decided, that this is the right course because of the number of questions. And plus, I also had a conversation with my friend who was really appreciating the way the sentence correction course was structured.
Okay.
So that's how I took the decision of taking this course.
Who was your friend?
My colleague from EY, Ernst& Young.
Okay. No, I mean, what's his name?
I don't know if Vaibhav is his name,
Mhm.
but
We have
I'm
lots of weapons who've been
yeah,
successful.
yeah.
Okay.
He wasn't. Yeah, I think he had not scored great, so he had cancelled his score, but he was appreciating the course a lot.
Got it. Okay. So you did that, and then I have your study plan right in front of me right now. And then you didn't follow it because you didn't start studying over here at that point, which is what the study plan shows. But given what we talked about, your entire length of learning was kind of this over here, where this is from 8th of May to 21st of July, around about a 3.5 month period over here. This is where you didn't follow it, but I think when you started studying seriously, that was kind of the amount of time you eventually took, right? About 3 months or so.
Yes, exactly.
So how did you start? Which subsection did you start with?
I started with sentence correction first because that was the section that I was really scared of, because I knew ki there are a lot of concepts in it, and I really need to brush up my concepts on sentence correction. And that is basically one section wherein you can actually make it or break it. So that's why I decided to start with sentence correction, got into the flow, then I
Mhm.
did critical reasoning, and last I did reading comprehension. And then I switched to Scholaranium entirely.
Got it. So when you started with sentence correction and you'd done the Manhattan book, what were some of the key differences for you learning on this platform versus learning the concepts from sentence correction?
Uh, Two things actually. First was that it was very GMAT oriented. Since I had seen the questions of GMAT before, so once I started the course, I realized that it is actually very oriented towards the exact type of questions that come in the GMAT exam.
Hmm.
Number one. The second was that it focused more on meaning rather than on, say, grammatical formulas.
Hmm.
So that's where I think it helped me to develop that kind of a thought process that is actually needed for the exam.
Okay. And by the way, really good stats on the course. I also want to kind of highlight those stats over here when I look at 82% in concept quizzes, 82%, 85% in concept quizzes, and 82% in practice quizzes overall. Good scores over here. I look at application file scores, really nice scores in application files, only 167%, that too in idioms, which again, don't care as much. Uh, so how did you feel when you would do the concept, you'd get a certain score at the end? What would this tell you?
See, the best part about the structure of the course was that, after every concept, you had some set of questions which you were giving as a test.
Hmm.
And, once you start getting hang of the concepts and you start scoring good, I think it automatically kind of motivates you to complete the course. So once I started seeing that 80% and that 100% and that 70%, I really wanted to, complete the course and then see that bar highlighting 80, 85%. So that kind of motivated me throughout the course. It was like a game for me because I was constantly, quickly completing the concept and switching on to the questions. So it was like more of a game for me. I just wanted to get that 85% in each of the course, in each of the tests that I was doing. So, it was kind of a motivating factor for me.
And the positive reinforcement was there. I did well, and
Exactly.
then okay. Um, and then the meaning based approach. So you were talking about, you said by the end of the test, you said by the end of of your preparation, the meaning based approach was so ingrained you didn't have to look at your notes.
Absolutely.
So tell me a bit more about it.
So I generally, like, just one day before the exam, I'm after the formulas, and generally, I revisit my notes and everything. But because of this approach, which is a very different kind of an approach, I was focusing more on meaning throughout rather than on the concepts. So because of that approach, I mean, the concept was so ingrained inside my brain that I didn't even have to look at my notes right before the exam. I was really basically calm before the exam because I knew I just have to focus on the concepts. I just need to focus on the meaning. That's about it. I don't need to learn anything. So I think that was the best. That is the best way of studying actually for the
Which
GMAT.
which is true because it's a very application oriented exam. You shouldn't have to worry about revising those concepts right a day
Yes.
before.
Otherwise, you'll not be able to complete the exam on time if you're constantly worrying about, what formula, where was it written in my notes. You will never be able to complete the exam on time.
I agree. I remember it's a misnomer. So when I did my master's from IIT Delhi, and we had these three courses where we had open book tests. And you think about it, man, open book tests, you could pretty much refer to anything. And those are like the worst exams because those books are not useful with the kind of questions you get in an open book test. The GMAT's very similar. I mean, knowing that concept is not going to help you if you don't know how to apply it, which means that if you day before the test, if you're worrying about revising those concepts, then you're not ready to begin with.
Yeah, so when you're practicing, you can obviously have your notes
Yes.
in front of you. You can keep on referring to those notes. But after some point of time, you would realize that, now you don't need those notes at all. You can, just go with the flow. You'll be able to understand, you'll be able to attempt the question correctly.
Okay. So did you then, post doing the sentence correction, post doing the course, did you go to Scholaranium and sentence correction? Did you do cementing?
I did actually, I made my own quizzes instead of taking cementing quiz and ability quiz. I used more of custom quiz concepts.
Okay.
So whatever little bit of time I used to have at night or in the morning, say for example, if I can devote half an hour right now, so then I would probably structure 20 questions and give half an hour time, be done with those 20 questions, and then throughout the day I used to revisit those 20 questions whenever I used to get time, see where I was lacking, and then revisit those questions. But that used to be
So
the
tell me more. This is, I want to kind of dig deeply. So in the night, you would take this 20 question quiz, right? When you said throughout the day, can you elaborate more? What aspect? Where would you get that
so
time?
if I'm taking the exam say in the morning, I spent like half an hour in the morning, gave the exam 20 minutes, and now I have to switch back to work because I'm stuck at home because of the COVID situation. So I need to start my work as well. So but and during the lunchtime or or in the evening, whenever I have a little bit of time, then I would start revising those 20 questions, see the concepts, read the explanation, and read the Q&As which are there after each question in the Scholaranium itself. So, there are those 20 questions, at least the concepts of those 20 questions, I am able to conceptualize it thoroughly. And then probably at night again, I would give a set of another 20 questions. So it used to be like an hour in the morning, an hour at night, and then throughout the day, in bits and pieces, I used to revise those 20 questions.
So I want to kind of talk a couple of things, make some observation based on what you did. But I want to, before that, a couple of questions. So you talked about the revision. You talked about visiting the forum against those questions. So how did the forum posts help you that were there?
Sometimes the explanation of the question might not be able to fully address the doubt that you had in your mind while you were attempting that question, because probably you had a different thought process and the answers are not addressing that thought process. So when you visit, so I used to quickly note down what thought process I had in mind and what doubt I had. And then when I used to visit the Q&A forum, then somebody or the other would have had that thought in their mind, and they would have definitely posted that question out there on the forum. And uh, so using those Q&As were actually very good in terms of helping me solve the kind of doubt that I used to have. In case it is not addressed, then I used to raise the question and it used to be answered within 24 hours, and that is really nice because I didn't have to ponder the next day, about my previous questions.
Okay.
So that's how the forum was really helpful for me.
Okay. You also talked about the fact that you would look at the solutions and so how are those, and Scholaranium solutions are very different from the solutions on the core platform with the learning part. So how did the Scholaranium format of solutions help you or the level of detail?
The best part was that the Scholaranium concepts were exactly in line with the course explanation, which is because it is very important that both of the things should be aligned, because how you understand the concept and then you should be able to understand how to apply those concepts. If there's some haywire explanation given, then it won't help you because that's not how you studied it. So I think that approach, of linking the concepts and the explanation, I think that really helped.
Got it. Okay. Um, Now I want to kind of make the observation, which is that a lot of people think, okay, just studying helps. What you did shows a certain trait, which is a certain trait of planning, which is very, very useful. And some of the reasons why you've been able to get to this score. That is, you kind of recognize, okay, you have those 20 minutes in the morning or in the evening where so this is where I can do my super high intense work, which is what is taking the quiz. And then when you got those little chunks of time, you focused on revising things. You weren't doing new things. That recognition that I shouldn't start something new when probably my focus is not going to be at that 110, 120%, but rather I should focus on revising. That ability to recognize says a lot about your ability to plan things, and doing it consistently over days and days says a lot about it. So I think that's one trait for someone who'd be listening that you should really just think about. It's something that people just say, oh, so what, she did that, but the thought process that went into crafting the strategy that you followed, I think is really important, and it should be appreciated.
Thanks.
So let's talk about from this to critical reasoning. So pre-thinking approach, how did that help you?
It helped me develop a thought process which I was lacking. That was the I used to really like critical reasoning, but so whenever I used to attempt question, it used to go wrong, and then I used to realize, then I used to try and think why the things are going wrong, but I was not able to figure out. So when I took this course, when I brushed through the concept, when I actually internalized the pre-thinking concept, I was actually able to pinpoint why my answers were, going wrong. And after a couple of months of practice, I was able to, hit the bullseye in every
Mm.
question, or in majority of the questions actually. So I mean, it was very automatic how my thought process developed and changed. It was very automatic. I didn't even realize it. I didn't have to actually have to put in a lot of efforts to understand, to read stuff. It was very automatic. So
Okay.
I think that is what the course helped me in developing that kind of thought process.
Okay. All right. I think let me just look at the time. We want to cap this part of the interview and focus on your MBA part over there. So so let's talk about this. So you already applying to ISB, and your question was, should you apply? How can you apply to other schools given that 2nd of December today, and and then most of the deadlines around that 5th or 7th of December overall. Um, I think first of all, when you go to one school, you kind of do about 70% of the work for the other school, because your primary questions such as why MBA, such as what are the key traits you want to highlight, how should the architecture of your application come about, those things should be falling in place automatically, or should have fallen in place, because even with the ISB application, your letter of recommendation are there, they're already in the right format over there. So if your recommender has provided or is building that LOR for ISB to adapt that to INSEAD, for example, um, is probably about another hour of work for your recommender at the most, if that. To develop the first set is probably 12 hours of work. But to adapt it to the next one is not a whole lot. And having given recommendation to about 7 or 8 e-GMAT employees, I can really vouch for that. So so I think that part is something. If you think you'd be done with your ISB application, let's say by 22nd, which frankly, if in 20 days you should be if you've been working on it, then you have enough time for at least 2 other applications.
Okay.
Okay, the NCR application is a fairly long application, but it's also a very interesting application. It's probably the longest application that has more essays than any other school does. But this is what makes that application very relatively easier, and relative being the key word, not actually easy, but and so because you pretty much all the aspects that you want to reflect in your application, they now have their own. Most of them have their own dedicated essays over there for your NCR application. So I think that definitely can be done. Booth, I don't recall the application anymore, but Booth is not. I mean, for example, the Harvard application is completely different. It requires, even though it's the shortest application, it takes the longest because you have to choose what to put in an essay.
Hmm.
uh, on the inside application, it's just the polar opposite because you have space for everything. So that choice part doesn't come in. So, so So it's like saying if you're going to go on 10 dates with someone and you know you're going to go on 10 dates, you're not going to worry about as much about what you wear on the first or the second or the third, whether you were Indian or Western. Whereas if you only go on one date, that's what the Harvard application is. That's where you have to do a lot more ponderance, and you have to think about and do a lot more research. So that's where I think INSEAD and Booth can be done, because ISB application, if structured properly, should cover 70 to 80% of it anyway. And again, it's not just essays. I mean, they're essentially holistic parts to it. It's yes, of course, there is essays, but what does the resume tell? What role does do the letter of recommendations play? What does the rest of questions that the school has? What role do they play? What are you going to talk about in the interview when you get invited? So what are you going to leave? What goes in the optional essay if it's there? So I think this all has to be thought in a more holistic manner over there, and success comes only when these or each of these parts start to reinforce itself. They're like a set of gears that move together in harmony. If they don't move together in harmony, then you have an issue. So if they're moving together for one school, they should move together for the other school as well, with of course certain customizations.
All the essays should speak to themselves.
All the essays should be in harmony with one another. So, for example, if you really in your essays you talk about your leadership traits as the ability to recognize how change can create a challenge for a certain set of individuals, and how you can ease that transition, and that's something that you're reflecting as an example in your essays. But if your recommender doesn't say anything about that attribute of yours, then those things are not in harmony,
Yeah,
right? So it's like I'm saying this, my recommender is not saying any of that. It has to be in harmony over there.
understood.
So that is where the architecture of application is. It's the language of application actually has very little. It's the same way as meaning-based approach. A lot of people think sentence correction is about grammar. No, it's not. It's about meaning. It's about expressing a clear and precise meaning, which is non-ambiguous. In the same way, essays are not about language. It's about showcasing those attributes and those achievements. The language, frankly, is immaterial. Actually, you shouldn't have flowery language. You
You
shouldn't over
shouldn't have flowery
you
language.
should not have flowery language. It should be very simple. You should not dramatize. It's not. I mean, it should read like a story, but it should not have a lot of fluff in it.
Okay,
Okay? It should be. I mean, writing has to be one of the simpler parts to it. Architecture has to be the more challenging part.
understood. Yeah, I absolutely agree because that's what I've been focusing on. I mean, obviously, interacting with you has given me some more perspective as to how I should draft the application. But yeah, this has been really helpful in terms of how I should structure it. And I I actually take this away from you that all the essays and the letter of recommendation should be in harmony with each other. So yeah, thanks a lot
Oh,
for
most
that.
of them. I mean, at least the relevant ones.
So yeah, thanks a lot for that.
And that's where when you do it for one school, you do it for other schools too, in many ways, and you'd really recognize. Okay. So yeah, I mean, any other question that I can answer?
Yeah, I just wanted to discuss the timelines. Do you think that 1 month would be like a sufficient timeline for applying to 3 colleges, say, for example?
I think so. If you, as I said, it's about intensity. It's not so much about 1 month. I mean, there are people who can't do it in 3 months, and there are people who do it in 20 days because of the intensity they put in.
Okay,
So
understood.
so so
And
it's
any
about
tips for preparation for the interview?
um, rehearse in front of a mirror.
Okay,
Okay, that's what I mean. Because if you get invited to the interview, which means the application is good enough. If your application is good enough, you would have answers to most of the questions. they would ask during the interview. But if you don't rehearse each question at least 4 times, you will stutter.
Understood.
And this is a very simple thing, but you'd be surprised how many people don't do it. They just don't like talking to a mirror. They just don't like hearing their own recording. Why?
It's difficult.
So you're not an engineer, right? So
Yeah.
so so in engineering, which we study something called filters. So when you think about sound, music, and you kind of separate sitar versus your audio, it's like a certain set of frequencies, right? Sitar is a separate set of frequencies. Your vocals are a separate different set of frequencies over there. And there are two ways to build filters. One is what we call as building a filter without feedback. And the second is you build a filter with feedback. We call them FIR and IIR filters. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, but the name doesn't matter. But point really is if you build a filter which kind of captures a certain amount of frequency and leaves everything out, and if you build that without feedback, you need about 15 times as much hardware as if you build it with feedback. So the point that I'm trying to make is feedback leads to much faster improvement. If you don't incorporate feedback, you're not going to improve fast. You'd go to 15 interviews, get rejections, 16 or maybe. But if you kind of do this, it's not difficult, it's taxing. It's painful because difficult means that you've got to think out of the box. No, you don't. When you hear yourself, you kind of figure out this is where I can be better because you have a benchmark and you kind of see how you sound. And so it's not difficult. The improvement's very easy. It's just
It's about accepting your voice. It's about accepting the way you present yourself and then, taking a step to improve yourself.
yes. That's basically what you need to do.
Understood.
It's simple, but it's just people don't do it.
Right, I agree.
So I mean, the smartest people don't do it. I don't know why. Because I mean, if you've been invited to the interview, unless you go to a school where they say if you have a certain GMAT score, we're going to invite it without even looking at your application. Most schools look at your application first,
Hmm.
which means you should have most of the answers anyway. So
Got it.
okay, all right. This has been good. Anything else, Mehak? You go by Mehak or Mehak Preet?
Mehek. Mehek.
Okay.
Mehek is fine.
Okay. So anything else?
No, I think it's been great talking to you. I mean, I really needed some advice on the MBA applications. I think discussing and talking with you has been great. So I'm going to take all that feedback that you gave me with me, make sure about, whatever stuff that you told me about the application, use those. And yeah, I think let's see how it goes ahead.
Okay, sounds good. Mehak, then one of the other things which is there is that, have you provided a review for the e-GMAT course?
Not yet. I'll do that.
Okay. Do you know how to go about doing that?
Yeah, I was provided a link.
Okay, perfect. That sounds good. We're really looking to get to those 2000 reviews, and we are at about 1976 right now.
Okay.
So we want to get to the 2000 by the end of the year. So if you could do that, that'd be
I
great.
would be the 1977th then.
Good. Thank you. We
Thank
truly
you so much.
appreciate that. And good luck and keep me updated as to how as the interview invites come in and so on and
Sure,
so
I'll
forth.
do that. In fact, I'll keep on taking your guidance as well along the way.
Did you speak with anyone on the EGMAT team?
Somebody gave me a call. I don't remember the name.
But post that during your preparation.
During the preparation, I was in touch with the entire team through through email only. The
Okay.
questions.
Was there someone you interacted more with? Because then that person, you could address your questions to that person. That way, he or she could consolidate those questions and get to me. So you'd get a
Mm,
much faster response. So if you
No,
talk to Nava or Dhananjay or Ashutosh.
I got multiple responses from various people. I'll just, go through my Gmails once again and
Yes.
see who's been responding to me the most and probably
Yes.
get in touch with him or her.
Yes. So I think that's what I would recommend that you do.
Sure, I'll do that.
All right. Perfect. Thank you and good luck. And heck, I'll look forward to reading your review then.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks. Thanks for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you for your time too. Bye bye.
Bye.